when I listen to that noise and I find the things inside that noise and I find the patterns inside that noise, it's not noise anymore, it's information that is getting into my ears.
Hello, everyone. This is the Space Café Podcast, and I'm Marcus. Imagine experiencing the cosmos, not through sight, but through sound, tuning into the rhythms, vibrations, and symphonies hidden within astronomical data. Today, I'm super thrilled to introduce you to Wanda, a remarkable scientist who lost her sight in her 20s, but discovered a profound new way to interpret the universe, purely through sonification. Wanda is not only redefining what it means to explore space, but also reshaping our understanding of perception itself. This episode is particularly special because it offers a rare and extraordinary new perspective on the world around us. So put on your headphones, close your eyes, and get ready to experience the universe in ways you never imagined possible. Let's go.
As I'm listening to, it was radio telescope data at that time, I'm searching for ways to perceptualize the information. How do I listen to the data, etc.? And I couldn't find it. Then I discovered that by the end of the 1800s, the use of sound had become almost, and I underline almost, obsolete in the space sciences and in the sciences as a field. It has been left behind. So I'm talking to my supervisor and saying, well, I identified these things it was when referring to the plasma bubbles in the data. It may work. It may be useful. And he said the question, he just verbalized the 65,000 euro question, 65 million thousand gazillion euro question. And he said, well, if it works, why did they stop using it? And I said, well, I don't know. And then he said, okay, I have another question. If it works, it is good, right? You said it is good. And I said, yes, look, we found the plasma bubbles. And then he said, it is good, but as compared to what? So then I decided to do the perception experiments, right? I had to answer my mentor. It was like, okay,
of course.
No. I'm a good student. I will have the answer to that question. So we did perception experiments because we couldn't find any evidence as to why these very smart people stopped using audio, and the sciences stopped using audio, and the technologies evolved in the visual direction. We couldn't find any evidence. And we did perception experiments, and then we evidenced that when you use audio, it increases sensitivity to events in the information. It was done with astronomers, to events in the astronomy information and telemetry that by nature will be blind to the human eye. And at that moment, I said, okay, it's worth using it. Not only worth for Wanda using it, who had already analyzed radio data and some solar data and had found events that were characterized, etc., but also it may be a tool useful for the scientific realm, for the scientific field, specifically for astronomy, right? Which is the field
because it enhances the possibilities. It enhances the bandwidth of observation and understanding.
Of course, of finding more science, finding events that may be significant, right? For the
how did your supervisor react?
He was always very supportive. He said, "You have to publish it," because I was depressed, and the results didn't make me very happy. And he said, no. The result itself is good for the science. And the result itself has to be published, because sometimes we do things without realizing the effects, the long-term effects of of what we are doing. And we are every day, we are on time in order to address situations. So if there is a fragment in the scientific methodologies, you need to say it. He was like that. He said, no, you need to publish it. Because I thought even on changing the route of the research. And he said, no, this is very good for the science. They will be aware and they will respond well. But you need to write it. If you don't write it, then who will know?
Of course.
So he was very supportive.
Yeah. So I could imagine that this was like an aha moment also, not only for you, but also for the astronomical community. So is there like now the astronomical community aware of the potential of all of this? And would like sonification now have a different standing in research when it comes to analyzing the data, the observation data?
I do think that it is getting there to have a different standing on the scientific realm. The astronomers, they have been very open to that. I think a couple of years back, the gravitational community made a conference on listening to gravitational wave data. And also the Polish Academy of Sciences, they did a whole day dedicated to sonification, right? Where different scientists presented at the Polish Academy of Sciences. So yes, it is acquiring little by little. It is acquiring a different position. And when I say different position, I will use the same word to say a different position, very different from the perception or the uses it had at the very beginning. And when I'm saying at the very beginning, I'm talking about 25, 30 years ago, when it was only used for visual sonifications or sound images, for sound images, or only for education and people outreach. So the scientific community, there are a couple of papers, I don't remember their names, I do apologize, of people that have used audio to analyze their data. So little by little, right, in the academic, in the academic realm, you find one or two papers that emerge on people using sound to analyze solar data, etc. So I think it's very good. It has taken long, but I think it's a path that we need to walk. I apologize for giving.
No, it's fascinating. If I may ask, Wanda, if you look up at the night sky, look up. I'm so visually focused. So if you listen up to the night sky, what does the night sky sound like to you?
Messy, very messy.
What does messy mean?
This organization, when it's a very let's delete the word messy. Is when you go into a symphony and they are tuning the instruments,
yes, of course.
It sounds just like that. But just imagine thousands of instruments and different instruments in different pitches and different timbres being tuned at the same time for the longest period of time. Do not ever think that Beethoven will start playing suddenly because all the instruments are. That is the rhythm of the universe. That is what you hear when you scan the universe using audio technologies. Of course, I cannot right now put on a telescope a device that will allow me to listen with different timbres, everything that is happening. But we have a device that we can just attach to the telescope, move the telescope around and listen, right, to the waves, to the lights that get into the telescope. In this case is a visual light, and perhaps it goes into the range of infrared that allow us to listen. So it's not what I'm saying is a different symphony. It's a
Very
different,
interesting.
it's a
Very,
different harmony. I apologize.
very, very interesting. Because so you wouldn't subscribe to Pythagoras or Plato's concept of the harmony of the spheres, the harmony that the universe is a grand musical composition. So this is not what you're observing.
It's a different musical composition, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is a harmony, but what we perceive as human beings, or what we have conceptualized and defined as harmony, is different from what I hear in the universe, and I like what I hear in the universe. Right? It's a different. Is a different expression of that existent harmony. There are many things happening simultaneously, and all of these things in terms of harmony, those things that are happening simultaneously, they have effects on each other. So we cannot say that one event is isolated from the other. So
Another.
those rippling effects, etc. We have to think about that, right? When we are listening, for example, audio. When you play a timpani, which is my favorite, my favorite musical instrument. You know the amount of things that happen when you play a timpani. You hit a membrane. You hit a membrane that vibrates. And all of those vibrations and motions, right, elicit emotion in the bone. And then all of those vibrations and motions, they travel through the air, they get to your ear. There are different interactions happening just in the simplest performance or execution of one bang of a timpani.
Beautiful.
So on the same token, is our definition of harmony perhaps may need to be enriched? Forgive me. I apologize.
Like there was an attempt to redefine harmonies and what we understand as beautiful music during the onset of the 20th century, with composers like Arnold Schoenberg and those folks who try to recalibrate our ears with very dissonant sounding tonalities, composing magnificent works. So maybe this was even closer to the reality that you're hearing, because what you're hearing, if I understand you correct, is not your beautifully designed musical harmony following the notes on the keyboard and whatnot.
It's not a human composition with harmonics, expectations.
Exactly. So we need to train our ears to something new.
You need to learn as we are trained to listen to music and have expectations, right? When we listen to music, we need to train ourselves to listen and redefine the concept of noise.
That's interesting.
Why noise is ugly? No, that is the most beautiful thing I have heard. When I listen to that noise and I find the things inside that noise and I find the patterns inside that noise, it's not noise anymore, it's information that is getting into my ears. So we come from a cultural, right, non-verbal tradition of this is music. These patterns convey emotion, right? In music, there is the concept of emotion. There is the concept of harmonies and patterns and harmonic and inharmonics, etc. And perhaps most likely is that our attention mechanisms are fitted to that. And I'm not a specialist on music perception.
Love it.
But a different training, which is what the scientific community may need, they need to sit down and train themselves. And that is one of the things that we are trying to address at some point, so they can train themselves and to listen in a low learning curve, to listen to the data And if they're sighted,
Yes.
they will be able to listen and see the data. If they are blind, to listen only. If they are blind and deaf, they will be able to feel haptically the vibration of the data.
Wanda, what's really interesting is I'm very appreciative of your openness to all of this. This means that a blind person or a non-sighted person perceives the world, the universe differently. So there is because a sighted person may say a blind, non-sighted person is lacking vision. But you, if I understand you correct, you're saying, no, I'm not lacking vision. I am experiencing the world differently. But it's at the same level of experience, or maybe a completely different level of experience. But it's you cannot play one again or pitch one against the other. Is that right?
What you're bringing, Marcus, is very, very, very important. And let me underline it with your authorization. And if you use this recording for the benefit of the listeners, sometimes we go into the science to use audio or to use haptic vibration perception, and people do not believe. So we are not perceived as scientists. We are perceived as, perhaps, which is very important, people that work on education and people outreach, or people that are getting there to make others, to provoke or to facilitate for others to become familiarized with the information. So it is at the same aspect of expertise as the scientists that have been performing for such a long time. And for a long time, we have been early onset peoples that are blind have been having to adjust to the perception that perhaps we may not do the science at the same level as a professional sighted scientist. Like, for example, Stephen Hawking, who I admired the most, rest in peace. So it is to perform the science at the same level, but it is also to enrich the science, to make salient things that otherwise they wouldn't see. And also to enrich the mathematical formulations, right? Which used to buffer and hid things in the data when you apply them. You can take the data just as it is, listen to the data, identify areas of interest. And then after you identify areas of interest, then you are able to apply mathematical methodologies that adapt to the information you are listening. And that is very, very, very important, because the universe it changes constantly. All the time is changing. So it means it's non-linear, it's non-stationary, and everything happens simultaneously. So to have an adaptive basis, adaptive mathematics that adapts to this particular change in a rhythm, or perhaps in harmonics to subharmonic ratios, is very, very, very important. If I do not want that very, 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 very deep, very dim change that I heard, I don't want it to be buffered. I want to know what caused that. What is happening at this moment with those electrons colliding with each other, or I do not know, traveling through the interstellar media, maybe too old, or I don't know what energetic places they have been facing, or they are traversing through when whatever event is happening. So that adaptability of our mathematical methods is very, very, very important. Sonification allows you, forgive me.
Wanda, in how far... No, this is fascinating. I was wondering, in how far is the sonification of data a randomly made up solution to a problem, or in how far has this sonification anything to do with whatever reality is, but is there something to it? So, for example, if you're listening to gravitational waves and you hear the sound of gravitational waves, so we know that for the lack of a medium in space, there is no sound as we understand it. But does the way you hear gravitational waves have anything to do with reality out there?
With reality in the interstellar media, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, because it's the data as it is acquired. It is the
It's the
same.
data, but it's still data that is arbitrary. So it's data that makes it audible, but may have nothing to do with, I don't know. So, for example, I could pitch down your voice or pitch it up to give me a different impression. So, for example, if I wanted to listen to you having a male voice, I could
No,
pitch it. I could pitch it down, and okay, you know
no,
what I'm trying to
no.
get at.
We acquire the data, and
Okay,
we bring it to the sonification prototype. And the sonification
okay,
prototype, what it does is that every number that you bring into the data, it will be translated into audio. That
okay.
the
Mm-hmm.
sonification prototype does. Regardless how
Mm-hmm.
big or small the number is, it will be translated into audio. And what you do without manipulating the information is that you bring it to your auditory realm so you can perceive
Mm-hmm.
the audio, right? You can increase the volume, you can decrease the volume, right? But the manipulation we do not perform, I do not perform any manipulation of the information. I may set, for example, as I'm playing the data, I want the pitches to change. If it is a big number,
Yes.
I want
Yes.
the pitch to be high, and if it is a small number, I want the pitch to be low. Or I can say no. I want to listen to it for volumes, right? For the volume to be the mapping of the information. But to manipulate it in that way, no, there is no way to, at least in the sonification prototype that I use, there is no way to do it. I can set, for example, a minimum pitch to listen to the data. It means that the most minimum value, forgive me, I said volume, that's a pill. I apologize. The most minimum value that you hear in the
Yeah.
information will be conveyed using that minimum pitch that I selected. There is no manipulation of the information. Equally
Okay.
in volumes. So as I'm not manipulating or exerting any changes to the data, I listen to the events just as is from the telescope or from whatever device I select. And for that, what I do is that I go into the data, right, into the columns of numbers, and I check for my smallest number. And then how am I going to listen to the largest number and the smallest number?
Of course.
And and that's it. That's it.
Wanda, what's really interesting, I can already sense in that conversation that you have an auditory superpower, because I know that you can hear when I'm trying to say something or ask another question by just my ways of breathing, maybe.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, I'm just wondering how you perceive the world around you, because they say when we lose an ability, the mind adds an additional ability to it by focusing its strength around something else. So I could imagine that your auditory system is able to discern patterns that I'm not able to discern because I'm not trained. I got my vision, and whatever. So I'm just wondering, again, if you that look at the night sky again, and you see you hear it's chaotic. But when it's like very silent around you in the middle of the night and nothing is happening, no traffic, no nothing, what is it that you hear? What does the world sound to you like?
It sounds like very, the air, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
beach, like the
Mm-hmm.
water, just when the water breaks very,
Mm-hmm.
very, very quietly on the sand. It sounds
Mm-hmm.
just like that, but quietly, right? Very
Mm-hmm.
low, very dim. You can hear the leaves, you can hear the grass, and that you mix it with the humidity that you feel with your body if you're in a humid place.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're telling me about a place where there is no human sound,
Mm-hmm.
nature is
Mm-hmm.
so rich in sound and motion, and the wind, right? Moving and traversing through the leaves and the grass, and is spectacular. All of
Mm-hmm.
that people will call a muted place, it just becomes alive by itself, right? Nothing artificial being injected into it. So it is not buffered by human-made sounds, which I'm not way. I'm saying that they are ugly, but it allows me to listen and tune with the beauty of the life in nature. If, for example, when I went to the UK the first time,
Mm-hmm.
when I went to do the PhD at the University of Glasgow, the first night
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't sleep
Mm-hmm.
at all. The second night it was worse because
Mm-hmm.
the silence was so loud.
Wow.
And in Puerto Rico, the nights are filled with the noises or the sounds, right,
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
nature.
Mm-hmm.
The cookies, the birds,
Mm-hmm.
the different animals making sounds. You hear
Mm-hmm.
things crawling. I live
Mm-hmm.
in the countryside, crawling on the
Mm-hmm.
floor. Sometimes a rooster breaks out in the night. So it's beautiful. It's just
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, and I'm used to sleep with that orchestra around me.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to Glasgow, the silence was so loud. I couldn't sleep.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So I had to discover. I was beautifully brought to discover the sounds of the night, the beauty of the
Mm-hmm.
night in Glasgow, because it was Glasgow, right? And Glasgow is beautiful, don't take me wrong. And I
Mm-hmm.
discovered that sound, those sounds that I was not
Beautiful.
used to.
Yeah.
And it's the
Used
same
to.
thing that we were spoken about before. It's just that we are not
Mm.
used to that beauty. And
Yes.
our definition of beauty is different. Now I go to Europe and I can sleep. And again, here comes the word soundly and profoundly because I
This is
I got used
you,
to it.
you're you're making me, or you're creating a very strange longing now for myself, because I want to, like, right after that recording, I want to just sit down and listen to the world around me, because I feel like I've never really, or in a very long time, never really listened to the world, because we're all very preoccupied with thoughts and with to-dos and to-do lists and this and that. And I'm laughing about me observing myself right now, like on the sofa of a therapist, because whenever I do lots of trail running now and then in nature, but whenever I'm running outside, I pop my earphones in and listen to podcasts or to music and whatnot. So there's rarely a moment I'm not distracted. So I think this is something that I need to find out again. What is the world actually sounding like?
And
And
Marcus,
you're describing it so beautifully, so vivid. So thank you for that.
if you allow me to enrich what you're saying, the things we discover when we are tuning into the space around us, right? Even if it is the immediate space around us, we
Mm.
discover things that we never realized
Mm.
that were so vivid. Like, for
Yes.
example, right now I'm realizing that because talking to you, I
Mhm.
am I'm trying to tune to every single corner of the house. And now I have discovered that there is an area in the house that perhaps it has a different structure in the roof because the echo sounds different. And I
You're
had
kidding
never,
me.
yeah, because I'm moving into the house and it's just talking to you, right? Because I get into this house once or thrice a
Mhm.
week. I get in, take my things, and then run out. Now I'm okay. I'm talking to Marcus, but at the same time, I'm walking inside the house, and
Wow.
the roof maybe smaller, but maybe shorter,
Mm.
maybe closer, because
Mhm.
my voice, as it bounces
Mhm.
through the walls, as it moves through the roof,
Mhm.
it sounds different. The architecture in that area, or something may be happening. Perhaps it's peeling, or the roof is
Mm.
falling down, or something. I don't want to
Mhm.
think about those disasters. No, 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 no.
Exactly.
I
Let's
will get
finish
it.
that recording first
Yes, I
before
will
the.
get it. I will get it checked. But what I'm saying is that there are things you discover that you never thought, right? And
Yes.
also our connection with everything around us. That
Mhm.
interconnection that is always there, but the
Mhm.
interconnection to realize that we are one, but we are not one. We are two. We are three. We are
Mhm.
1,000.
Mhm.
We are an infinite number of things that are interconnected. It's really beautiful. So yes, let me know how it goes when you tune yourself.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Wanda, if I may ask, how did you end up in this very peculiar and special pocket of life and the universe? Because you told me at some point you know what sight is, and you were born sighted. So if you allow that question, what happened in your life, and what was the time like before and after, and how did you adjust to it?
I was born sighted. I'm going to get a little bit of water. I apologize.
Of course.
I was born sighted, and I'm diabetic since I was a child. And
Hmm.
as complication to the diabetes, I'm an old gal, proudly, and I've been
Hmm.
getting old with a lot of pride. So when I began
Hmm.
with diabetes, the technology was not as,
Hmm.
as, as advanced, right? So we had to get injections, etc. Then it
Hmm.
evolved to insulin pens, etc. So
Hmm.
uh, complications. I also didn't take care. I was really, really a disaster taking care of my health when I was a child, a
Hmm.
rebellious child, eating sweets and things like that, and not exercising.
Mm.
As complication to of my diabetes, I lost my sight. I was in my early
Wow.
20s when the
Hmm.
doctor did his like mid 20s when the doctor did
Hmm.
his last laser, and the quality was not very good, and it burned my retina. It means that
Hmm.
light, one of the retinas is already detached, the other one, it has a lot of scars and light cannot go through.
Hmm.
So I'm totally blind with 5% of sight vision in my eye.
Hmm.
So that means that the only memory I have of my face is of a young woman that was 25 or 26 years old, which I don't regret. I like it. But also that I have never seen my nieces, and
Hmm.
I have never seen my mom as she is right now. I have seen her and I remember her. And they're very happy because they say, Wanda, I look just alike. We are of the
Wow.
alike club. We don't change for you. So that's very good.
Wow.
So the transition was quite challenging, specifically because it was important to do a degree, to
Hmm.
support my family, to go to
Hmm.
university. And I wanted to succeed in university and I wanted to be able to support my family. And
Hmm.
I come from a poor family.
Hmm.
For my parents, I could perceive them working a lot in order to support my sister and I, me diabetic,
Hmm.
with these complications due to the diabetes, eyesight, and the sensorial perception in the skin, or neuropathy, etc. And my sister, she's severely mobility impaired, and they fought a lot. When I said fought, is in the good sense of the word, right? They exerted themselves a lot. They had to work a lot in order to support us, to provide for us. And I wanted to provide for my family. So at some point, when losing my sight, when I was, losing my sight, and also when I lost it, when I had to use the cane, that was really challenging, because I said, well, I'm a blind scientist. That cannot happen. So it was very, very, very challenging. And that is when I had to find other ways to either continue to go on as a scientist or as other profession. And I wanted to become a medical doctor. And it is exactly when I'm in the deepest point of that confusion that a friend of mine, he invited me to listen to data acquired by an audifying tool. And that opened a realm of possibility. Like, okay, if this exists, perhaps it's a way that I can follow. And then that's how I begin loving astronomy. Not loving it, but like perhaps it's a possibility to stay in science, and not to have to withdraw from the scientific realm. Right now, there are blind people that are psychiatrists and other professions. But at that time, long ago, it was like, okay, and now what it is going to happen? Just by being blind, I will not be accepted in the medical school, or the misconceptions that we have, or the right conceptions that we have for that time. They may be right or wrong, but that is what I thought. And then I go into astronomy. And that is how I begin walking little steps in this field of listening to the information, researching why it was not used, thanks to my mentor who asked that wonderful question, why it was not used, and what has been the evolution, and trying to harmoniously heal that fracture that we evidence that is happening into the scientific methodologies, not only in astronomy, but it's all methodologies. The neurosciences have used it. Yeah.
Well, I would even say it's like a new telescope. It widens our bandwidth. It broadens our vision. So you are sort of a new telescope, a new way to see the world, the universe.
Multisensorial perception. Yes, it's a new way to study the universe. Wanda is a tool that is trying to move it forward. And most beautiful, Marcus, and perhaps this may become of interest or not. United Nations next week on the 8th of May, they will present a panel on I don't remember the name of the panel. Forgive me, I will find it. But they will present a panel on the 10th Multi-Stakeholder Forum on Science, Technology, and Innovation for the Sustainable Development Goals. And the Royal Academy of Science International Trust, the princess, Nisreen El-Hashemite, Dr. Nisreen El-Hashemite, she said, this is the place where we are going to talk to the stakeholders of science, technology, and innovation. We will talk to them about the exceptional skills of people with disabilities, exploring the data with other sensorial styles in order to extract more data and also to move forward the Sustainable Development Goals. And that will happen on the 8th of May. But these steps, right? This is a big step on the 8th, but these little steps that we made before, humbly gathering scientific evidence, doing very thorough analysis of the events that we had heard in the data, prepared for this panel to be accepted, and for these experts to be together in this forum in order to advocate and harmoniously ask for a way for multisensorial perception to be included in the autonomous methodologies to analyze the data. We are not talking about accessibility or to give you a magnifier. We are talking about having a sonification prototype that will allow me to use my sensorial perception in order to explore the data at its own very maximum. And
I feel very ashamed to be very honest to that in my vocabulary also there is still the disabled person, but the more I listen to you, the more I need to understand that there is no such thing as being disabled. It's other abled, maybe. Or maybe we're all abled, but there is no disabled person, because you're definitely not disabled, because you have other potentials. You have abilities that I do not have. So how can I call you disabled?
That's beautiful. That's beautiful, Marcus. And I sure hope that the millions of people that will hear to your podcast, as they do every time you publish one, I hear all of them when you publish them.
Thank you.
To also change their perception that we are not beneficiaries, that we are also benefactors of science and also benefactors of society. And this is what Her Royal Highness Princess Dr. Nisrin El Hashemite is trying to do. It has been the first person, right? When she said, in 2 weeks, there is a panel at UN and we have to organize it. I said, when? And she said, in 2 weeks. Okay, okay, we will organize it. Because there are very few people like her and her brother, Prince Anand, that are able to perceive the long effect, right? The distant effect of the actions that we take today. Sometimes we focus on solving immediately or creating things immediately, and then we don't perceive what inequalities or what deficiencies this may cause into the future, into the distant future. And so having that balanced view in order to address now things, thinking on in 100 years what will happen, is something that is very uncommon. And only 3 people I have found. You and Prince Anand and Prince Nisrin El Hashemite, who I hope you can meet one day. Yes.
Fantastic. That's very humbling. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that perception. And it's true, the skills are exceptional. Look at John McFall, who I hope you can interview. Please interview John McFall.
Tell me more.
He is the astronaut who is he's being trained to be launched. Did I say it right? He's being trained as an astronaut, and he has a disability. He has he lacks a lower limb, one lower limb or extremity, and his are exceptional, like way exceptional than the rest of the astronauts. By the way, he deals with accommodating himself to the different challenges and the different scenarios inside the spacecraft, and also rehearsing the outer space walks, right? Or
Absolutely.
EVAs. He's like way exceptional. And I always say, John, you will be launched. Even if I have to put you on my shoulders and launch you myself, you will be launched for the sake of everyone, right? To transform that perception into what you perceive.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Like who needs lower limbs in space? Like I could even imagine that space is the place for paraplegic people. Because zero gravity allows for so many different ways of maneuvering around. So the paraplegic may find a completely new realm of life in space. Perhaps we'll see. So thank you for pointing me toward that astronaut. I haven't heard of that story
Yes,
before.
from the European Space Agency.
Fantastic.
If you can, I had only like 3 minutes with him, right? I of course asked for a picture. John, we need a picture. But what I'm saying is that that transformation from only beneficiaries and people that may turn into a load to become to be perceived as what we are, benefactors. That is very uncommon.
Wanda, I keep asking this question time and again on the show because I'm so curious to find out. But what do you think, this pocket in time that we live as humans, it seems like we are finally getting ready to leave this place to also populate different parts of the universe, starting with the solar system. Do you know this is a premature idea and wishful thinking on my end, or where do you see us at the moment as a species?
Our evolution as a species, what I know is that Earth is irreplaceable. That I know. That my house is irreplaceable. And I know I get really, really, really happy every time an exoplanet is discovered because my community is growing. And I think about the possibilities of discovering new things, new science emerging. And even, I do not know, right? Even finding life or new form of what we define as life, a redefinition of life somewhere. So what I perceive ourselves, I perceive ourselves turning more into protecting our home, into realizing that in the near future, and even in 100 or 200 years, we have no other place to go than to be here on planet Earth. Even if Mars is, well, we can say now that Mars is around the corner, right? It will take how long? A couple of weeks or days to arrive into months, to arrive into Mars. But even though it is relatively around the corner, we cannot get there right now to survive, or in 100 years to survive, unless we rush things. So right now, what I perceive our community is coming back into a very healthy way of focusing on protecting our Mother Earth and moving ahead, the creativity, the scientific creativity to protect and move forward methods that do not need obsolete ways that we used before that were affecting our planet and life in our planet. There is one of the things that multisensorial perception does, and sorry I'm saying this, is that it focus the ways of researching on the ways the human has to perceive events in the data. How I maximize my identification of events in the information, how I maximize my connection, my communication, I will say connection, right? With this information that I gathered from nature. So in one way, it focuses on the context of the person, who at the same time focuses on the context of the information being heard. And by doing that, it may elicit, I do not know for sure, and this is me here brainstorming, it has the potential to elicit a new economy, a new perceptual method where the global creativity, the global intuition, the global knowledge and wisdom that has elicited for everything that exists, benefiting science to exist, to be enriched. But focusing on the person and protecting those things that are there and we were not aware before. I perceived a different and richer awareness of the human life. Forgive me. I apologize.
Beautiful. Beautiful. There's nothing to apologize for. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all this. If someone put you on a spacecraft and you had to travel by free will, of course, to Mars or to the moon and whatnot. Would you do it?
Of course. Of course I will do it. Yes, that's why I say, John, I'm going to put you on my shoulder and I'm going to launch it myself. You will not stay here, regardless what NASA says or the other space agencies say, right? Do not use NASA there because I love them, but regardless what they say, you will be launched.
Fantastic.
Of course, that is a hope for children, for humans, right? To be able to experience that which our humanity naturally cannot reach out for. I cannot extend my hand and touch a star. It is true. I'm talking poetically. It is true. But I would not even be able to get close enough. But those things that we have been always longing. Longing? Yes.
Longing.
Yes. Longing for from the wisest, from the elders, wondering about the celestial sphere, wondering about what it is out there, to be able to reach out for it in real time. Sound is bringing that. Multisensorial perception brings that. Sight brings that. Limited, but it brings it. But to be able to go out there and reach it for real, that is something that people always have wanted. Yes, me too.
But still, Wanda, even if you travel to Mars or Titan or Enceladus or whatnot, you're not going anywhere in the vast distances of the universe. How does that make you feel? Like, is for an astronomer, for cosmologists, for physicists who understand the vastness of the universe, isn't this also a majorly frustrating job to do, job to have?
No, because I always think that out there and in here, out there and in here is universe. So the same vastness, I feel it here. And even if I'm on the moon,
inside,
or I'm floating around, traversing from one planet to another, right? Doing orbits in order to reach an orbit around Mars and then being able to launch. I'm just one part of that vastness. And vastness is that, right? Is infinite expansion. And whatever I do here, that's why I say here and there, everywhere is the same, because the actions I do here in order to outreach, right? That light that arrives or those events that arrive into Earth or to my telescope from those distances, it makes me feel closer. And also everything I do here, everything is motion, right? It's even micro motions. It is connected with the vastness in very infinite, at very infinite distances. And I'm being a little bit poetic. I want people to understand that, but it is completely related. The conversation we are having here right now, right? Our cells moving from one side to the other. I cannot say it doesn't have an impact in my surroundings, because I know that when I'm in high spirits, people feel it. And when I'm in low spirits, even if when I exert myself trying to simulate that I'm in high spirits, people feel it as well. And how do they do that? Because I was smiling, etc. But they felt it, right? I was teaching, and I had a seizure, and I arrived to the classroom. I watched my face and I said, no, I have to go and teach, and this will be great. And just 3 hours, then I will come home and I will rest. So I thought everything was okay. The next day, when the students arrived, they said, hi, Dr. Wanda. Oh my gosh, yesterday we were so worried because we thought you were, does that make sense? We cannot say, even poetically, and I'm a scientist, talking in those terms, we cannot say that expansion it's not expressed here where I am, even
Mhm.
if we are covered with, is how we perceive it, right? I think
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
expansion is everywhere. And
Everywhere. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't focus on the immediate so much.
Yeah.
Forgive me.
Wanda, for that travel to Mars and to the stars, what's the one piece of music you wouldn't want to miss to keep you entertained? If you had to choose one tune, which one would you want to bring along that ride?
I will bring, well, I do not know if I will bring two things. May I say two things?
No, unfortunately, just one. You
Okay.
know,
Okay.
you need to decide now.
Okay. I'm deciding right now. I will I will bring I will bring the audification of time coronal mass ejection or solar emission or a sunburst that we detected on
Yes.
the, because it reminds me of the song "I Will Survive" from Gloria Gaynor.
You know what? You know what? If this is okay for you, because I will, because we have a playlist on Spotify. It's called the playlist for the aspiring space traveler. So I will add I Will Survive to it because the sonification data I think may not be on public music platforms.
Okay, but
So
I can give
let,
you it. I can give you it, and you just link it. I apologize if you found it.
okay.
Yes,
And
will survive. Yes.
fantastic. And one last question, Wanda, if you permit. This place is a coffee place. It's the Space Café Podcast where we casually sit down and have deep conversations. And now and then, if you feel like you're getting tired, you energize yourself with an espresso hard shot, like an intense shot of coffee to energize your body and mind. I challenge you now to share an espresso for the mind with me for the audiences. What's the one shot of inspiration you would like to share?
A shot of inspiration. I will
Yes.
like to share. One of the things that I would like for people and for scientists is to dare their imagination, and not their imagination, but to dare to discover and to dare to utilize ways that have gone beyond or have escaped the natural ways they have of doing science. Not only to dare it to use it, but to move, not only to dare to use it, but to move forward their scientific creativity and to trust in the possibility that the human sensorial methods focused on the human, right, is that those sensorial methods are the origin of our scientific insight, our scientific intuition, our scientific judgment, and that is the origin of the polishing of our scientific results. I would I would give that espresso to the peoples for them to try, for them not to limit discoveries, right? To only one sensorial methods
Wonderful.
of perception. Forgive me.
Wanda, thank you so much for letting me take a, a peek into your very, very special world and your wisdom, and for sharing that wisdom with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you, Marcus. I wish we could continue talking. You know who I spoke with last week at Dorado Beach? The gentleman that was the lead of sound for a TV series. Perhaps you don't know about it. It's a TV series in the United States called the Star Trek. And
Yes, of course.
it's about space. And it has, well, if you know about it, I don't have to explain it. So
No, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
he said, we had to merge scientific insight with keeping the people with whatever was happening in the plot. So our ways of using sound in Star Trek it could never have words. It had
In
to
reality, exactly.
Yes, it had to be only sound. And he said, and one day we decided to include sound in one of the sessions for Star Trek to open for the opening of the session. And the fans, they came with what's the name? With signs, and they made a riot they made a riot in front of the studio because they
You're
didn't want
kidding me.
audio. They wanted to hear. Yes.
They
So,
wanted to hear.
yes,
Wow.
David Grossman is his name. What they said is
Fantastic. I think one of the the Interstellar movie was one of the first movies to try to really stick to physics and be as accurate as physics allows. So and it took a while because Star Trek, Star Wars, they are now like decade-old masterpieces.
yes,
So it took science fiction a while to get to a little closer to reality.
indeed. But they are on their way, and people asked for it, right? Perhaps that riot.
I love it.
Fines moving. He said we had to. I have the song, right? He said I'm going to share with you the song, but we had to. Forgive me. We had to delete it. We had to remove it because they didn't like it. They didn't want. They wanted only audio. Yes. Forgive me.
Wow.
Forgive me.
Wow. Wonderful, Wanda. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your wisdom.
Marcus, thanks to you. I've been looking forward to this conversation, and I hope it works out well for you to use this audio. And I sure hope that I will share with you the link to the panel. And I sure hope if you get to hear it and tune with other people, two other peoples and me. So it's 3 other peoples that are tuned to your way of thinking.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today, my friends, on this uniquely inspiring episode of the Space Café Podcast. A special thanks, of course, goes out to Wanda for taking us on such an extraordinary auditory journey through the universe and revealing this true power of multisensory exploration and perception. If today's conversation resonated with you as much as it did with me, please share it with someone who might also be interested by this new way of experiencing our cosmos. Remember to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and always stay curious, stay adventurous, and keep exploring. Until next time, this is Marcus signing off from the Space Café Podcast. Bye-bye.